this episode will end up asking the question, what the hell was the Soviet Union? To which you could ask, quite reasonably, who cares? It's gone. I'm here to waste time. Jump on board. All right. But for now, I want to mention, I'll get to the Soviet Union. For now, I want to mention my favourite podcast currently is Sticky Notes, a music podcast by someone called Joshua Weilerstein. I like the guy. I tell you what, he moves in gifted circles. He sounds gifted. I'm an ungifted person listening to a whole lot of gods, really. All the people he has on. He's friends with everybody. He's about 30-something, These are people who wouldn't talk to me. And there's all these famous composers and things, last episode he was talking to the musical director and CEO, if you like, or the president of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and at the same time was speaking to, I think, the Phoenix Symphony Orchestra or something. Anyway, but just now I'll get to the Soviet Union somehow. Just now, he was interviewing Emanuel Ax, who I'm pretty sure I've never heard of, but I've heard of him now, and he has to be famous because my friend Joshua Weilerstein moves in gifted circles, so he has to be gifted, this guy, or I don't think, why would Joshua talk to him? He was, I did hear an interview with Yitzhak Perlman, who I have heard of, and Toby Perlman, is that Yitzhak Perlman's wife? And they were talking about how, they were dedicated to the idea of a school of some sort for gifted children. So see, it starts birth to grave. Got to look after the gifted children. There are organisations out there that are dedicated to looking after the underprivileged children and people of the world, but these people, they're like gods of a sort. No, they all seem really down to earth, actually. But whilst there are people from birth to grave looking after people who weren't hit by the lucky stick, these people, are genuinely very caring about people who are gifted and looking after those people, and they need looking after. Otherwise, we'll never hear them play. Their gifts will never be bestowed upon the world. So they do need special attention. They're special needs children, gifted children. All right. So Emanuel Ax. So my friend Joshua, he was interviewing this guy, and he said, all right, let's start from the start. So you were born in the Ukraine? And Emanuel Ax, what a great name, said, well, the funny thing is I was born in the Soviet Union. My dad was born in Austria, he said, and my mum was born in Poland, and we were all born in the same city. There's a history of the region right there. I didn't pick up what city it was, but there you go. And he said, so my dad was born in Austria, my mum was born in Poland, I was born in the Soviet Union, and that city where we were all born is in the Ukraine. And so there's a bit of a tour without going anywhere, but it does beg the question, all right, they're 4 different countries. The Soviet Union, I think, was a country. But you might say, well, was the Soviet Union, was it really Russia? was it a Russian Empire? And I think, yes, but I think no, all right. It's sort of become a Russian Empire as a result, I think, of the Soviet Union having collapsed not too long ago. When I was growing up, just give me a sec. Don't interrupt me.
Talking to yourself again?
Yeah, Soviet Union. All right. Now, when I was growing up, there was no Russia on the map. There was no Ukraine on the map, as far as I remember. So, was there a Russia and was there a Ukraine when I was growing up? Right up until I was about, 63, 73, 83. Until I was about 26. There was no Russia, no Ukraine, no Georgia, no Armenia, no nothing, but then the Soviet Union collapsed, and it broke up into all these countries, most of which the boundaries had shifted and all that sort of stuff had kind of existed before. Most of them, not all of them. Prior they might have been a region more of another country or whatever. A little bit like this guy, Emmanuel Axe, saying in my city, it was Austria, then it was Poland, and then it was in the Soviet Union, and then it was in Russia. Now, but the Soviet Union, was it actually a thing itself, quite separate from Russia? Well, as it turns out, maybe not, as it turns out, but it was looking that way. And I was just thinking about that just before I pressed record. Is Italy right now actually Italy? I would declare yes, because I see it on the map. And I talk to Italians all the time. They say, yeah, this is Italy. I've got an auntie that's in Italy right now. But have I? Is it actually Rome? Well, no. Rome fell, remember? Rome might have fallen. When did Rome fall? Some people, Russians might claim that it fell in 1917. Anyway, because Rome kept going after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the East, in Constantinople and so on, and then even as Constantinople fell, Ivan the Terrible ran an argument that Rome didn't actually fall then, it shifted up to Russia. And instead of, no longer did we have Roman Caesars, but we had Romanov Khazars. And the Romanov Khazars, Ivan the Terrible, I think he married a niece or something of the last Roman emperor. I can't even, I always get all the dates wrong, but I think the Western Roman Empire fell, 476 or something, and AD. And when did the Eastern Roman Empire fall? 1450 or something. 1453. That, straight off the top of my head, it'll be wrong. But as it fell, Ivan the Terrible, I think it was, said to the last Roman emperor's niece, "Come hither," up to Russia, and she did, and they were married. And he said, by virtue of this marriage, we have a continuation of the Roman Empire, and it shall go on forever. And this is the third iteration of the Roman Empire. Before that was the Roman Republic, and before that was the Roman Kingdom. But all the way through to 1917, until it was knocked off by the Bolsheviks and all those sorts of people. Anyway, when Russia, because it was Russia then, even though it was Rome, Russia fell, and soon afterwards, Lenin turned it into the Soviet Union. Let's go back to Italy. Okay, is Italy Italy right now? Well, if you're living there, or if you are there, then yeah, it's Italy. Only an idiot would say it's not Italy. Yeah, you wouldn't call it Rome. If you were in the city of Rome, you'd call that Rome. But if you're up in the north, if you're up in Tuscany or something, or if you're in Milan, or in Florence, if you're in Florence or in Milan, my auntie is in Florence at the moment, in Firenze, and my niece is in Milan at La Scala. There's a place drop. My niece is a name drop too, Sophie. She's amazing. But who gets to go to La Scala? These sorts of things were just not even on the radar when we were kids. We got to go to Wood End, not La Scala. It's nuts, Anyway, so she's in Milano, and they're both in Italy. I swear it, Scouts honour, But what if the Roman Empire makes a comeback in about 5 years? Suddenly another Mussolini rises up and just knocks off the whole idea of Italy and just says, no, we're going back to the Roman Empire. It could happen. Funnier things have happened. Well, Mussolini tried it. That was the plan. But let's say it does happen, things go badly with the economy and all that sort of stuff. Everyone goes nuts again and suddenly Rome is back. Now, would people, and it takes over the whole area right across it takes Greece again, and takes Carthage again, does all the same things, takes Constantinople off the bloody Turks, and maybe, let's say, sets up the centre of the Roman Empire in Constantinople. Why not? Or in Rome, doesn't really matter. Anyway, point is, the whole thing is, you look at a map and there's Rome all over the joint again. Let's just say all the way from North Africa right up to, let's not take Gaul yet, but all up the Italian peninsula and across to takes all of Greece and so on and so forth, all the way across to Constantinople, and the Rome is back. Now, soon enough, I reckon, after a couple of generations, people would, I think, start to sort of say Rome, that Italy, they would just in retrospect maybe say that Italy was Rome all along. Maybe. It sounds a bit far-fetched to me, but is it more far-fetched than saying that the Soviet Union was Russia right through? Because the Italian peninsula was Rome, and then it was Italy, briefly. Look, it was Rome, and then it was all these city-states or something, but you could rationalise all that as kind of post-Rome. And then you had this idea of Italy, which, if it fell, this idea of Italy, within the next 5 years, it will only have been around for, 150 years. It will have been a blip on the radar. All right, so then Rome makes a comeback, and people might start saying, look, it was Rome, don't be picky, look, it was Rome all the way through. And, some of us people who lived through the time of Italy might say, well, no, it really wasn't Rome, it was Italy. Now, to some extent, can someone who was living in the Soviet Union, born in the Soviet Union, his parents were born in the Soviet Union, his grandparents were born in the Soviet Union, whatever, can that person say, no, it wasn't Russia, it was the Soviet Union, a whole different idea? And someone might say, oh, don't be picky, look, it was really Russia, wasn't it? And this person might say, no, look, especially after 1917, no, a whole new utopia had been brought into play. Lenin had brought in a whole other thing, and Russia was a region, maybe, within the Soviet Union, but no more so than Macedonia is a zone within Greece, but you wouldn't call all of Greece Macedonia just because Macedonia was in it, and that's the way it would go, I think. To that extent, the only reason I think that in our imaginations, I think that the Soviet Union was kind of Russia is because it ended up Russia again. It was Russia before. I mean, the Russian part of the Soviet Union. It was Russia before, and even the Ukraine was sort of Russia before, but before that it was Ukraine. Look, like Emmanuel Axe said, in my city was in Austria, then it was in Poland, and then it was in Russia. No, then it was in the Soviet Union, and then it was in the Ukraine. And people say, gee, I tell you what, when you hear stories like that, that city, I didn't even find out where it was, but I would bet that whoever lives in that city right now, especially in the shadow, well, it's not a shadow, in the actuality of the current Ukraine versus Russia conflict, people in that city would say, this is sovereign Ukraine. But gee, I mean, I'm all for it, I'm no Putin fan, for God's sake. But, how sovereign? If it was, if this guy, Emmanuel Axe, his father and his mother and himself were all born in 3 different countries, and they were all born in the same city, and that city isn't in any of those 3 countries now. It's a bit rubbery. It's a bit rubbery, whichever way you slice it. And it's a bit... And sometimes something, well, whatever it is now, you kind of retrospectively deem it to have always been so, I think. I think we do that a little bit in our minds. So the fact that it is in Ukraine now makes it always... that city has really always belonged to Ukraine. You kind of just put to one side what Emmanuel Axe said to me just before, I go sort of, it was really Ukraine, right? But gee, it's tricky, isn't it? And the same goes with the Soviet Union.